Imagine the whole atmosphere as 2,400 1-liter bottles of water. So we have 24 cases of 100 1-liter bottles. 98 or 99 of those cases would be oxygen and nitrogen, neither of which are greenhouse gases. So, of our 2,400 bottles, of our cases of 1-liter bottles of water, 99 of them are not greenhouse gases. In that one remaining box, there's 100 bottles. 98 of those would be water vapor, clouds, humidity, atmospheric moisture. Climate scientists don't even understand how water vapor interacts with solar energy to enhance the greenhouse effect. None of the major computer models that tell us we are hurtling towards climate catastrophe, not a single one of those supercomputer models can accurately reproduce cloud formation. Water vapor is 98% of greenhouse gas, and we haven't got much clue of how it interacts with incoming solar radiation to warm the Earth. So that's why we picked on carbon, because we have some sense of how carbon works in the greenhouse. But of the two remaining, okay, so we had 2,400 bottles, we got two bottles that are carbon dioxide and the other greenhouse gases, methane, nitrogen, sulfur dioxide. About 1.5 bottles out of our 2,400. We got a whole truckload of 1-liter bottles. 1 and maybe 3/4 of the bottles are carbon dioxide. Of that 1 3/4 bottles, 95% is produced by nature. Decomposition of animals and plants, carbon releases from the ocean, forest fires, volcanoes. The amount of water, the amount of carbon dioxide that's man-made in 2,400 liters is about equivalent to this. And Canada's contribution to this is 2%. Now, we could all stop driving our cars. We could voluntarily agree to become unemployed because we would let all of our factories be shuttered. We could completely devastate our economy. For a fingernail width in this glass, out of 2,400 liters. Now, it's possible for a substance to be so toxic that that much of it would kill us. But as I said at the beginning of this example, we would have to increase carbon dioxide in the atmosphere by 100-fold before some of us started to get headaches. Okay, so you say that's fine. The carbon dioxide in the atmosphere doesn't have any impact on human beings, but couldn't tiny increases in the amount of carbon dioxide trap a lot more heat close to the Earth and cause dangerous global warming? Possibly. But as I have been told reliably by many geologists and geophysicists and earth scientists, carbon dioxide is only capable of absorbing a certain bandwidth of reflected energy from the sun. So the sun sends a whole bunch of rays in. Carbon dioxide can only capture a few of those. And of all the solar radiation at that bandwidth, the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is already captured. You can add more carbon dioxide, but because it's all of that bandwidth of energy is currently being captured by the existing carbon dioxide, any more carbon dioxide that you add isn't going to absorb more energy. Therefore, it isn't possible for it to warm up the Earth anymore. Now, there are scientists who dispute this, and they say that there are other ways that carbon can reflect heat back to the Earth, it can keep it in the atmosphere. That's fine. That's what the debate should be about. But on the political side, who has ever heard that out of 2,400 liters of water, this is all that humans produce in carbon dioxide in a year? Who's ever heard the bandwidth argument that carbon dioxide is incapable, no matter how much more we put in the air, of trapping more energy from the sun unless the sun puts out more energy? Some of you have probably heard that the sun has a great impact on the climate, and that over the last 100 years the sun has been particularly active. I've also heard the theory that the sun, this is quite true, the Earth has tipped on its axis slightly. It doesn't have to be fractions of a centimeter over the past century, tipping us slightly closer to the sun, which would also account for the growing warmth. There are so many other explanations for why the Earth might be warming than that our tailpipes have caused a dangerous climate change. There's a reason in the last couple of years, if you've been watching closely, that the term global warming has been replaced by climate change. Okay? Because we haven't had any global warming in the last decade. Despite what Al Gore says in his magnificent movie, the 8 of the last 10 years have not been the hottest on record. Since 1998, which was a very warm year, arguably the warmest in the last 150 years, since 1998, if you use that as a starting point, there has been a gradual cooling of the surface temperatures of the Earth. If you use 2002 as your starting point, there's been a plateau. There's been no cooling or warming. If you look beyond the ground temperatures at weather balloons, satellites, NASA has 8 satellites in steady orbit around the Earth, in geosynchronous orbit, that take 350,000 weather readings, including temperature, every day. They've been there 29 years, and they show warming of 0.14 degrees Celsius. If we all agreed to blow out at the same time, we might be able to get the thermostat in this room up by 0.14%. That is, or 0.14 degrees. That is clearly within the natural range. Now, it could be human caused, but it's much more likely that it's caused by natural factors. There are 3,000 little tiny buoys in the ocean called Argos. About this big around, about this long. They float along about 2 miles under the ocean for 10 days, making all sorts of readings, and then a little bladder on the out. If you've been floating around in the ocean for 10 days, your little bladder would make you come up to the surface too. They have this little bladder on the outside that makes them float up to the top, at which point they send all of their data to a satellite, which then sends it back down to computers. They have been floating around in the ocean for almost 6 years. 5, let's say 5. In those 5 years, despite all of what you have read about global warming in that time, these 3,000 little buoys have not found any warming in the ocean at all. In fact, there's been a slight cooling. And one of the scientists who runs the Argo program was so surprised by this finding that he said the other day, it's possible we have entered a period of less rapid warming. And as I said, that's like when I start to gain weight, I've entered a period of less rapid weight loss.